financing your next billion. Gain insights into successful engagements with venture capitalists and investors. Get ahead of industry trends, hear from industry leaders, influencers, founders, policymakers, and governments. Stay in the know on how to finance your next billion.
Welcome, everyone, to the Women Leading Change Now Commission on the Status of Women. This is the parallel event that we do once a year with the United Nations on the Commission on the Status of Women. It is also the time for, this is actually an official meeting, so we will be calling our official meeting to order for Women Leading Change Now, and we do this once a year where we will meet, and we meet in tandem with the United Nations Commission on the Status of Women, because our organization is a political advocacy organization, and we advocate for the rights of women throughout the world. I have a lively panel with me today, and we're going to be discussing some of the top 20 issues. We hope to get to all 20 issues. Each of the panelists that we have here are experts in their field, and we have interviewed them on our collaborative FYNB Talks program. And so you can go out to YouTube, and most certainly you can see they'll be memorialized there. And you will also see clips throughout the year from these women and men's organizations about, what it is that they do and how they show up in the world. So I want to call this meeting to order officially at 10:04 a.m. U.S. Eastern Time. So we have everyone here. Welcome to all. And we have done very beautiful bringing everyone together. And we're going to jump right in because these topics can be very, very intensive. Women's rights have improved over the years, but continued progress is not guaranteed. In a time of escalating conflicts, rising authoritarianism, and devastating climate change impacts, women face many issues related to education, work, healthcare, legal rights, violence, and much more. By understanding these issues, the world can work together to achieve gender equality, stronger human rights protections, and safety for all people. So what we're going to look at first, and that is a leveling of the pay and the salary field. There still continues to be a gap. And one of the things that I want to preface this is when we're saying equal to, let's look at parity. Before, we have always tried to achieve equal pay. Let's look at parity of pay and bring that to the conversation as well. So when we think about the topic of unequal pay and salaries, can anyone just kind of give me, where are you in your industry, or where do you see the industry that you work in? And just raise your hand if you will. No takers? Lisa Kirkwood.
I just wanted to say one of my observations, really, because think about 100 years ago, women were not allowed to have jobs to begin with. So there was no question of equal pay. There was a question of no pay, total dependency on the man's salary. So the fact that we've come so far in the past few decades, it's a real sign of progress. I believe that in the future we will achieve pay parity, but it's a slow process. People have to assimilate this, just like societal changes. So yeah, give it a bit more time. It is frustrating that we're still dealing with pay disparity, but I think it's only a matter of time.
Jan, can you kind of chime in and give us a what are we waiting for? What is the time? I mean, I hear this every time we come to these tables, every time we come to these talks. It's always, yes, we're going to get it, but it's going to, what are we doing in all this time?
I think as a species, we're making accelerated steps that are not quite visible yet. As a minister, a nurse, and a spiritual mentor, I am feeling the biggest uprising of feminine enough to remove the manhole cover, and this takes a while. It is sequential, and we have been programmed and patterned to keep it down and not speak up. And now look what's happened. We have to match that with intensity, but the frequencies of our voices can't hold anger because that creates more anger and confrontation. So my work is to look at women's frequency profiles of their voices and to not be Kali, but be Kuan Yin. To speak power to authority, to show up with boobs, suddenly that puts the masculinity, the alpha male, in a certain titillating state. Should I kill it or you know what it? It's so primal. So we can rise above that by holding our grace, holding our intuitive wisdom that disarms the heart of the nastiest narcissist, transactional, would-be authoritarian regime in any country. And so it's up to us women to reduce our fear, get grounded, and bullies will lose their footing. I had no idea I'd say that so powerfully. Thank you for pulling that
Very
out.
powerful, very powerful.
Good
And
job.
the only
Good
one who
job.
can take, she said some words there that we have to come back and say, okay, what do those words mean? But Anaya, I know you speak into this topic with
Yes.
what you have, the fireproof woman. Jan just said we need to step up to the plate and we need to be able to, go forward, burst onto the scene. So give us some tips. How is all that going to really kind of play out? How would that play out?
In the work that I do as a coach and as an energetic quantum leap master, I want to encourage every woman here and all around the world to realize that you have the power to make the quantum leap. For me, the quantum leap is the equivalent of knowing which chess move to make at which time using which of your skills and abilities. Being fireproof helps you do this because it is how you have already processed the fear. You've already moved your voice and the way that you want to speak into energetic coherence that matches your path to promise as a woman. And that's something that we know can impact every other woman and girl child in the world. So there's no waiting. When we take these quantum leaps energetically, we actually can shift time. And we can determine how time gets used in our favor or against us. That is something that the masculine world has a full grasp and understanding of, and they've done their best to keep us from finding out how this works. This is our time. This is when we learn how it works, and this is when we apply it, and this is how we gain parity energetically, financially, spiritually, legally, morally, and any other way that we want to walk in the world on our feminine path to promise.
That's right.
Sunny, okay. Now you come to us from institutional academia, many years. Unmute yourself and give us that perspective from the man's perspective. Unmute yourself.
There you go. Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Okay. I come from a big family. And I have 4 sisters that have trained me well. I was taught to always open the door, to be gentle, but also to teach them as much as I can. And now I have 4 daughters, 2 of them married. I listen to them. I'm 70 years old. I've been through a lot in life. And as a teacher, considered a master, as a black belter in martial arts, multiple martial arts, I encourage all my women friends to get engaged and learn the full strength, not only of beauty, not only of sensitivity, not only of being aware of the surroundings, but also of the need to understand at least the basic elements of being able to protect yourself when crazy people, many men, who tend to abuse their strength or may not be aware of their strength, their physical strength. I say this because I've had many classes already in decades of teaching, and I always have many female students, usually more than men, and this has helped me throughout life. I listen to my children. I pass on the, okay, when you reach a certain age, you gain more and more skills and abilities. You gain more independence. I've seen this happen with my sisters, 3 of who are older than me. I've seen this with my friends, and it absolutely works when there's open communication. But not all men have been trained to learn that way. And so I appreciate being being part of this group.
And we appreciate having you here. We're going to turn this. We've gotten what we got the frequencies to the spiritual feeling of this, and we've kind of covered those areas. There's some other areas that I want to cover out there. So what I'm saying is we've covered the softer side. Now I want to go to, I want to step on the other side of this equation, of this question, and I'm going to go to a woman who actually works with businesses to actually strategize and to bring those businesses online and to make them more efficient. And so therefore, and is very, she herself has worked in high level corporate, Fortune 500 companies. So she knows what she's doing. And now heading up her own company, Terry Maxwell, she deals with pay. And I know that one of the things that you have to be apprised of when you're going into a company and you're trying to, help them get on equal footing, one of the major areas probably that's looked at first, are salaries. And so how do you really help them? And when you look at it and you see a disparity in the pay, is that one of the areas that you speak to those companies about? Terry?
Yeah, my gift is growing businesses. And one of the most interesting things about that, if you separate for a second corporate America from entrepreneurship, it's easy to blame the corporate American system, and which happens globally as well, for the pay disparity. But you also see it in entrepreneurship, and that's the irony. So less than 1.9% of all women-owned businesses in the United States make it to $1 million. Globally, that number is less than 0.5%. So what you get is now we have all of the control that we want as an entrepreneur, and yet we still have pay disparity because we're not growing our businesses to a level where you can truly retire from your own businesses. And I think that's our responsibility. And I like to focus on that. That's not the system. It's not the clearly male dominated world that we're in. That is our responsibility to take back our power, learn what we need to learn, and grow our businesses and our communities so that we can make a bigger impact in the world as well as be financially free.
Excellent. I like that. And because what she says is she put it in perspective. And she's so absolutely correct in that women come into entrepreneurship and don't grow their businesses. So Carol, what can you tell us? Why are we not asking for the correct amounts? Obviously, we're doing the work. Obviously, we've got a business in every single industry that's possible, that's out there. We're coming to these businesses many times with 10, 15 plus years of corporate experience, 10, 15 years of entrepreneurship experience. Women are very detailed. They do a lot of work. Why can't they break past this, especially when they come into the business of their own, these multi-million-dollar, ceilings?
By 2050, our planet will be a vastly different place. By 2050, artificial intelligence will be everywhere. AI-driven stores will allow you to purchase goods without cashiers or waiting lines. AI will diagnose and treat patients, manage transportation, and analyze massive quantities of data. AI chatbots and voice recognition systems will sound like and behave just like real people. AI will be implemented into robots. By 2050, robot dogs and other pets will serve as companions. Robots will dominate factories and begin to serve as teachers, cooks, pharmacists, law enforcement officers, athletes, and other professionals. In 2050, universal translators will remove all language barriers, and voice recognition will be ubiquitous. Hundreds of sensors will be installed in our clothes, homes, and overall environment to monitor our well-being and improve our lives. Computing will change. By 2050, we may run on quantum computers. Based on the properties of quantum physics, quantum computers could deliver massive leaps in computing power, outstripping any current transistor-based models. AI and computers will integrate into humans. Brain chips like Elon Musk's Neuralink will treat neurological disorders like Alzheimer's, Parkinson's, spinal cord injury, and blindness. These brain chips will allow people to control computers and prosthetics with no physical interaction. By 2050, we may be controlling things with our minds and communicating through brain signals. By 2050, robotic prosthetics may be stronger and more advanced than our own biological ones. Prosthetic eyes and ears will enter the market, curing blindness and deafness. And in 30 years, like AI, virtual reality will be everywhere. People will try on clothes in virtual reality closets, and holograms will bring FaceTime to a new level. VR platforms will allow you to move around while staying still. We will be able to travel the world and experience life on other planets, all from home.
Okay, so as the founder and director of White Yay Global, I'm all about entrepreneurism. And I do believe it starts with our mindset. We have had a mindset that has been that we are second-class citizens, that we are, we stand behind men, not to side by side with men for many, many, many years. And it's been passed down. And I do believe it's got to start with our mindset that we actually do believe we deserve.
Okay. Jackie, chime in. I see you ready.
Well, yeah, I mean, Carol's absolutely right. And it is our responsibility as to the women that are on this screen that I can see and know about 3/4 of you, to let our voices to be known. I mean, not one of you on this screen, I don't see any exception at all, is quiet. You're all A-type personalities. Lisa maybe a little less, but most of them are A-type personalities, and we have to decide that we can make a positive difference. We have to realize that there are times, the serenity prayer, to know the difference and to realize that there are ways that we can change things. If you want to know how to do that, ask Carol and I. We are moving in as many forces as possible to not only ourselves, I think it's important to realize to embrace and listen to the others in other cultures as well, to show them there is such a thing as a vision. It's not survival. There is something called a vision. And by the way, you have the skills to be able to make it real. I think that's important that we take that on, not only of ourselves, but to join each other, to be able to come to other populations and to have them realize the power that they have.
Melissa, you deal with young girls across Africa in several different nations, and so what are you saying to them? We've kind of the focus here has pretty much been from the U.S., not the Americas, from the United States of America, from that perspective and that way. What can you tell us? What are they saying? As far as that, these are young children coming onto the scene. What are they looking at and what are they saying?
Initially, they are looking at the old programming, the cultural training of definitely being less than. However, it's with education and with mentorship that we also offer that allows them to realize there is another way. And that is why it's so important that we provide education to the girls. And we have mentors, and these are mentors who are other women of African descent that have moved over to North America and earned degrees and have successful careers, mentoring the girls to create the vision that Jackie was just talking about, to show them that it's possible. Because we are trapped in our programming, and many people don't realize we can update our programming. And we update our phones the moment we get notification that there's an update. However, nobody gave the people the update that we can update our own programming. And so that is work that I do over here, and it's my dream to be bringing that powerful work over to our girls. However, first they need to have the education. They need to have the groundwork, the foundation. There's no point building a house on crappy soil, right? Let's give them a foundation. Let's let them know that they are significant human beings that can make a difference in the world. And we know that they do. We know that an educated girl is more than twice as likely to educate her own children. And so we create a ripple effect. And the stat that got me interested in working with the girls and righting this wrong in my mind was that if India could educate just 1% more girls, it would raise the GDP of the nation by $5.5 billion.
Wow.
So therein lies the answer. We educate the girls, they become part of the economy, contributing, and we can bring countries out of poverty.
Okay.
When we allow them to break out of that cultural programming, even the neurological programming.
Well, we've got someone here I want to call up to the podium to talk about that healing, that bringing, out of, really touching on that neurological part. Parmelia, yes, thank you. If you would give us that, now we're getting ready to talk about it from the neurons. all those little electrons in the brain that's firing all those little points and what have you. How then do we, because it looks like we're not going to legislate. We've been dealing with this now for the dawn of time. So it's not like we're going to legislate it into being. We're not going to, we've talked about it into ad nauseum. So in everyone here, there seems to be a concurrence that what we're actually seeing is that mindset that we are in, what we have been ingrained to believe in this era. And then after you bring that perspective, I'm going to call on Bylon, and I'm telling her this because I want her to tell us about the before times when women were in a much more prominent and position and dominant position. But Pamelia, if you would tell us how can we reprogram or get the programming, that Melissa talked about? How can we update the brain?
Well, it's a matter of, as well as updating our brain, is also updating our consciousness level. And so just to, build on what the previous guests have talked about already today, we really, I believe, we need to really be an example. We really need to show an example for not only women in our own generations who haven't quite seen the light yet, but also the generations that are coming up, to let them know that yes, but it's our responsibility. I truly believe it's our responsibility to be the example for them. And then to answer your question, Yvonne, we have not been educated around the power that we have in our bodies, both from an emotional point of view and from how our brains work and how they work in conjunction with our subconscious and unconscious, which Melissa knows because that's the work she does as well. We are very powerful human beings, and our bodies are absolutely amazing. But we haven't been told that. We haven't been role modeled that we actually, our bodies can heal themselves given the right conditions. We've been from, I'm speaking from a health point of view as well, that we've been conditioned to go to someone else to fix us, not to look within us as to what we have that we can contribute to not only our own health, but also the health of the world. And so, just being aware, being curious, being taught to be curious, being taught to ask questions when something doesn't quite fit right for you. That's your intuition. And again, that's the language that we need to learn, and that this generation, we need to teach, and we need to be the example.
Okay. So sometimes, if we take it away, from what you said, it made absolute sense. Looking outside yourself may not be where the answer is. The answer is actually inside of yourself. And I will add to that and say, if there is no class, then no course or something that you have access to, we have access to Google, and it has put together, several trillion terabytes of information on everything that you would. So therefore, the responsibility and the onus is on the individual to educate themselves.
Yes.
And Bylon, I want you to, I want you to bring us from the age, the times before, the ages when women were very much, in control, very much, had the understanding and the nurturer. That's how the earth got to where it is today. And then somehow, somewhere, we lost our way.
Yes. I don't want to say traditionally, but in the ancient times, we had mostly matriarchies where women were in charge of how life was and how the community was governed, and how we nurtured our next generations. We knew about the value of the balance of roles of masculine and feminine, not male and female, but masculine and feminine. And every single one of us to this day and into the future all have masculine and feminine. We are struggling in today's world to harmonize the intellect and the emotion and all of the different intelligences we are rediscovering that we as humans possess. And in order to create that harmony between us, to create the kind of environment where we can step back and say, I am a woman, I have my balance, whatever that level of balance is, whatever you are focusing on in your work in the world or in your interactions with people. I am a woman and I am expecting to be treated as sovereign, as a sovereign in my world, and I will treat my world as a sovereign. In the work that I do with people, I help them to regain that perspective and to create their world from the space of I am sovereign, I am the benevolent queen of my world, I am the benevolent king, or I am the captain who is responsible for my people, and to speak from that place. When you're speaking, it doesn't matter if you're a man or a woman, you have the people's well-being. The highest good of all humanity is at the core of everything you think of, everything you do, all of your decisions. Now, if we are all coming from that, or if everybody around you is coming from that perspective, we're not putting each other down. There isn't any violence. There aren't any thoughts of that. It's really more coming from a place of how can we help each other rise? How can we help each other grow? That is the more balanced way. That is the way that the yin and the yang are able to be equal, with a little bit of that little dot in the other, right? The dark has a little dot of light. The light has a little dot of dark. We are not all just one. We are a harmony and balance of both to create our whole individually, as a community, as an organization, as a country, and as a planet. So trying to find how do we get back to that space of, I guess you could say equality, I guess you could say parity, but from that place, that perspective of being at the top of the mountain and looking at your people and saying, what is the best I can do? Because I know the world I want to create. Every single person that I see has a space in that world. How can I harmonize all of the skills and talents that are before me so that we can all work together and work well together, and be surprised at what they come up with? I mean, we are such brilliant people when we bring our gifts to the fore.
Well, thank you so much for that.
Welcome to the world of pre-seed funding, the initial phase of venture financing where entrepreneurs kickstart their startup journey. Pre-seed funding marks the beginning of the seed funding process, where entrepreneurs use their own resources to develop and grow their startup while seeking guidance and assessing viability. The primary aim is to assemble a team and create a minimum viable product, MVP, to showcase the product's potential and attract additional investment rounds. Startups at this stage typically have a valuation range of $10,000 to $100,000. Many entrepreneurs seek guidance from experienced founders to help them determine funding needs, create a successful business model, and gain insight into developing their plan into a functioning business. It's important to note that success is not guaranteed, and various risk factors must be taken into account when investing one's own resources into a startup. Pre-seed funding sets the stage for the exciting journey of turning an idea into a thriving business, but it's essential to navigate the challenges with careful planning and guidance.
Move move on to our next topic. Anais, you had a question or you had a comment?
I spent many years as a certified shorthand court reporter who did daily copy for medical malpractice and environmental cases. And one of the things that I learned in the 7 years that I performed that work, which I really enjoyed and loved, was learning how to listen. In my work in the courtroom, my job was to learn how to listen, and I developed the ability to hear when something was off or not quite truthful. And I had the capacity as a court reporter, though I couldn't say anything, and I was busy taking a testimony, to put a little red dot on the transcript. And then when I would record, go through the recordings and generate the transcripts, I would make a note for the judge in that case. You might want to look at this. You might want to look at that. And drawing the attention to where there were little moments of potential resistance or not really fully addressing the problem, that was a really powerful partnership. And it was based on what Bailan has just talked about, which is the feminine energy. When I was able to relax into my feminine and focus on listening and trusting my body, then I became a really valuable partner for the men in the room. I often made $10,000 or more a day in some of these cases. And I think one of the things we're all wanting to be able to do is, where do we reach that neutrality emotionally that is the balance between masculine and feminine energy so that we can partner effectively? We're not a threat. We're not diminishing our capacity or our skills, but we're coming in balance. And when you come in that energy, you very rarely have to say anything. I didn't have to say anything at the end of the day or in the beginning of the morning except to hand the transcript, which was my way of contributing to the process. I spent 7 years doing that. That was quite an education. And I would say there's value in that. And while we want to move forward and get our parity and our equal pay and our gains, I think what Bailan has emphasized is the balance is critical. Thank you for that, Bailan.
Well, thank you. That was an excellent discord, on that subject. And I'm sure that what we'll be able to do is to, once in summation, take from that, knowing that all the information that is being provided in its whole raw form will be sent into the United Nations on the Commission on the Status of Women. These are your voices, and they want to hear the truisms, the good, the bad, and the ugly on some of these different topics. Now, I'm going to switch over to another topic. Many of you touched on this subject as you were speaking and as you were going through, and I know many of you, the different types of works that you do or have done are centered around education. Well, there is a lack of education. But I don't just want to, I'm not focusing this on just simply to educate or not to educate, or yes, we should get educated, what have you. How should, it seems to me around the world that the education systems are not getting us to where we need to be or to where our world is going. Education by in and of itself changes as you go through certain eras in time, because different things change, the people change, the things that people want to do, they change. So therefore, the old education system that educated, say for instance, for an agrarian society, were no longer valid when you went into a machine or industrial society, and now they're losing their validity once more as we go into a computerized and now into a digitized and now into a moment by moment where there is the lines have been blurred. We talk across the world just as we're talking right here and now. So how then do we change our education systems? And can we weave some of the things that you've spoken about here into that education system to change those different mindsets, so that the outcomes, how do we change our system so that not only are we taught the things we need to do the work that needs to be done, but also that changes us as a species? So who would like to tackle that first? Elisa?
I think first and foremost, we need to secure the basic necessities, which is food, clothing, and shelter. Because we can talk about education, but women in certain parts of the world cannot get educated if they have to worry about what they're going to put on their table from today to tomorrow. So once we get that covered, especially young girls that we're talking about today, then we can talk about education as well. Think about the economic situation of certain challenged area that have to really dig deep for water or walk many kilometers a day just to get water. How much education can you instill in that community if the basic necessities are not met? So we need to work on that first, and then education will come with it. And then at the other side of the spectrum, take Europe, where the level of education is very, very high. Women are very much career oriented. And also, by the way, education in Europe costs a fraction of the cost of what it is here in the States, on a side note. And women are empowered through education and ownership of finances. They would rather focus on a career than starting a family. And I can speak that from the perspective of Romanians, because that's where I hail from. And it's very empowering to see that women are finally taking center stage. They have their voices heard in politics, in society, at all levels, really, because they chose to do so. When the basic necessities are met and we have a tradition and a culture of decades of education for women, think about 150 years ago, let's just go back in time. Again, there were no schools for women, and then there were schools only for women, and then there were schools for women and men. They could, study together. So it's unfortunate that it takes so long to equalize, to balance the norms of society, but it's better than we used to have it before. Because when women were not allowed to study, men weren't allowed to study either, and everybody lost, really. So now we are moving in strides, and I think it's just going faster and faster for someone who really pays attention to the rhythm of life. We are moving towards what they call a social singularity, with or without AI, because we are going to get to a point of convergence of energies of yin and yang, of masculine and feminine. And we are going to realize that we are all people with the same need for respect, care, appreciation, and love. So with that in mind, we will definitely welcome the future.
That's excellent, Lisa. I'm gonna have to stop you right there, because I can see I've got the whole group here is chomping at the bit to get to the question. I can appreciate what she is saying, but what I am, yes, you do need the basic necessities, and I would offer this, and I'll throw this in, as an add on to the question: what do we do? How do we change the education systems? We now have to look at it like this. We have to educate while we are actually building the water. If we're going out to dig a well to put some water in, then that's the education. That's the education we're going to teach you. If you don't have food and you need to have food, then the education we're going to teach you is how to plant your seeds and how to grow your crops, or how to fish. We're going to teach you how to do that. So we have to think about things simultaneously, while also getting to my question, and that is, what are the different types of things we need to be teaching? I've got my curriculum people here. Jan's one of them. So come on, help me out. Sani, you're another one of them. Your academia You guys held from the point of we have to have some type of curriculum, and it has to be a simultaneous curriculum where, just like with the entrepreneur, we don't have a parachute, we build a parachute on the way down the mountain. Jan?
I'll go first. I think we need to sort, is education for sovereign beings with souls or fear-based survival automatons to make money and serve autocratic regimes? The Waldorf School shows beautifully how to create a people, beings that honor all, and the interactive, regenerative nature, the sustainable ways of farming, being in family, honoring the seasons. My children went to Waldorf schools, and now my grandson does. Education is absolutely at the core of everything. And one of the first things that dictators do is come in and change everything into their vision. So I think this is a really good question to be awake to, but I don't have a lot of specific answers because we're not directing it globally at this time. I believe we will have a united front and begin to honor again the divinity of each person, equal rights, diversity, all that is being on the table for question now. The gold panning is occurring, and what is good will rise and will hold. And that's what keeps me getting up in the morning to do the work that I do with hope.
Sonny, from directly from Sonny taught, he's very humble at the Asia Institute in the Philippines. And so therefore, he's definitely, when I say from an academic standpoint, he's definitely bringing us. He was there for many years from that perspective. Sonny?
Well, for somebody that almost got kicked out of every level of schooling I went to, I ended up with being given a scholarship in the Asian Institute of Management, and because of the practicality of the approach that I answered the questions that I was asked for, and I really think that education begins even before we're born. And the child really understands or feels what it can and translate it into what is necessary. That when the child cries, they get attention. And we naturally attend to that immediately. As we grow, we develop skills. And these skills are appropriate to the development of our muscles, of our brains, and our experience levels. And this is why I always tell my students, and I have usually in my classes many students, female students, and I tell them, I ask one basic question, then I point out to any of my students, and I say, after you answer, you choose who's going to answer that. And so everybody gets involved in the discussion. I learned that because as a child, I was I was one of three boys, and we had four girls, and it was really the education I got was very physical from my dad, but the mind and the interests and development came mainly from my mom and my sisters. So this, I think, is something that has to be less worked on as it was before. But the situation growing up in the Philippines was very different. And as we grew up, the shift changes. I remember my elder sister, the one just before me, who when I was being bullied, came up, walked up to the guy and kicked him, and kicked his bike and broke his bike, and said, "You don't mess with any of our family." And I looked at I watched it, I observed it. True, the guy was bigger, but okay, this is how we do it. And so I learned. I chose to learn. And after being a black belt for more than 50 years, or close to 50 years, I've never hurt anyone. I've defended myself when I needed to, but I even let the guy go and said, "Look, maybe I can help you."
So we learn through education. We learn through our experiences.
All our lives.
All our lives.
And we must share this with everybody we deal with. It is the basis for developing respect. It is first we learn to respect ourselves. We as many have spoken about this already, that we have our inner strength. But there is also the physical aspect that sometimes many men
I have to stop you right there, Sonny. But thank you for that. I want to jump up. I want to pivot over to Carol. Carol, you are setting up. You are actually taking a portion of your curriculum of what you teach on, and you are actually training across the oceans, you know, to several different countries in Africa, and you're teaching them how to teach your program, which is starkly different. It's not just a standard school. Can you kind of share that with the group and the impact of that?
Okay. Yes. So I teach mindset. It's the biggest deal. And it's the biggest deal in any area of our life because it's the first place we go. We either are operating from a limited mindset that stops you from all your goals and dreams, because it will stop you. That's really what it's designed for, is to send you to bed and pull the covers over your head. So I teach how they can actually identify that limited mindset so they can actually create something. Because I say in my course that unless you can identify it and see it, you have no power. It has the power. So our mindset will either run in a way that stops you from everything you want in your life, or it will empower you and kick you right back into action and taking action in the things you want in your life. So what is showing up inside of it is they're actually believing they deserve to thrive. And that is not their culture. Their culture is survival, struggle and survive life. So I make sure that they come from a place of, oh my gosh, I can have my goals and dreams. Because once they start believing they deserve to thrive, then they start looking for what's possible in their lives instead of what they've been taught down the ages culturally, that is all they're going to get in life.
Okay. Terry, I see the other ladies with your hands up, and that's good. I'm gonna pivot to Terry, and then I'm gonna come to Bylon, Pramila, and Melissa, and we're going to catch Jackie on this also, and Anaya. You deal with where you're teaching people who are already pretty well educated and experienced, and you coming in, and now you're having to give them a new direction, a new way of doing things. How accepting is that? How much pushback, in actuality, are you getting? And then what happens when they do either make the change or they decide they're not going to make those changes?
Yeah, great question. So the business that I do that in is called Shift Co. And we show founders how to grow their business and grow their impact. And there are two drivers of transformation. One is their willingness to change and learn and grow and master whatever it is. And the other is whether or not they're taking consistent action. And what we've noticed, 85.7% of the founders using our system have doubled their business, usually in about a year. But I stay up at night worried about the ones who haven't, that 14.3% that haven't. And we can plot them on that grid of willingness and consistent action. And the ones that double their business are able, they have the willingness to master a mindset of growth, as someone mentioned. They have the willingness to master entrepreneurship. They have a willingness to become self-master, and they take consistent action. And so that's the combination that causes founders, both male and female, to grow their business. And we say double your business and you'll triple your impact.
Familiar?
Yeah, I just wanted to build on what Jan said around global education. I know we need the basics, and I think I'm in Canada, so I think both, certainly North American, Canada, US countries give in our education system, we are being educated on the basics. But I really truly believe that we now, because we're a global community, we can reach across many, many countries and across the world and have connections. And so we need to be educated on a more global basis so that we are understanding, even as Balin said, what has gone on in history. And the good part of the history that we might want to mirror some of that. And also the bad part of history that we don't want to repeat. But we're often not educated globally, and certainly not on previous history of previous countries where things went wrong, as to what we can do now in our own countries to make sure that that doesn't happen.
So you're going to force us to learn from the past so we don't repeat it in the future.
Well, I think it's a good idea.
You say, oh, that might work. Bylon, tell us, what do you think? Will that work? Or can we just keep doing the same thing we've been doing before and expect a different outcome? How about that?
Well, we know we don't want to be insane or to feed the energy into the insanity. I am actually blessed to have had an aunt who was educated at UC Berkeley in the 1950s. And she came from the Philippines. She came from a family where, her father was a teacher. And so anyway, education was always really important in my family. Always has been, always will be. Always will be, I believe, in Asian families. Education is very high, very, very high in the values. The reason I want to bring her up is because after she got her PhD here in the US, she went back to be in Indonesia, where her husband was from. They met at Berkeley, so intellects. She eventually became the consultant to the president. Now, in the 1960s, this was still a country that was, I wouldn't say backwaters, but really third world, post-colonial, trying to find its footing in the world. And so there were, I think they called it the Gang of Five or something like that. There were a group of intellects who came from Berkeley, and they helped to modernize the government. My aunt was the consultant to the president because she was a woman. Holding a position, an official position, was not something that was accepted. But she was the consultant on education. So every time the president wanted to talk about education, or she wanted to talk about education, she was able to get to the front of the line and go straight into the president's office and talk to him about what was needed to change the education in this country. And the biggest thing that she tried to do, and she got the wheels moving, was to train the teachers. You have to teach the teachers and raise their level of awareness and education, because there was no standardized teaching at the time. It was just whatever people had picked up. That's what was taught locally. So to standardize the education so that everyone is learning to the same level at the different grade levels, that the teachers were all teaching the same thing. So standardizing it so that you have the energy of intellect moving together in tandem and growing. And she helped to create a new environment where the frequency was raised, right? From that post-colonial into stepping into modern times, right? But you need to have people who are there to help lead that charge, who are educated enough to be able to say, I've seen how they do it better somewhere else. Let's bring it here to this space. And it has to happen from the top. It really has to happen from the top. And you know, we are seeing what is happening in real time right now here in the United States, and it is alarming. And it is giving us the opportunity to say, this is what I do or do not want in my educational system. This is how I do or do not want it to be distributed out. This is how I do or do not want my children to be taught. So as disruptive as everything is right now, we are being given the chance to speak up, to make a decision for ourselves, and then to speak up not only for ourselves and our families, but for our communities and our nation. So educating the teachers so that you have that front line, and then giving the children access to technology. And even here in the United States, not everybody has access to the internet, as we found out with the government programs. Everyone needs access to the internet, and every single telephone gives you that access. So how do we get the technology in the hands of the children and the teenagers, the adults, everybody who wants to learn? How do we get that technology into their hands? So the decision has to be made from the top that we need to improve the education, we need to standardize the education, and we need to make it accessible to all.
Are you a new business looking for venture capital funding? Let's talk about Series A financing and what it entails. Series A financing is the first round of investment for startups. At this stage, businesses must have a developed product, consistent revenue flow, and a plan for long-term profits. The typical capital raised in a Series A funding round is between $1 million and $15 million, with an average of $13 million. Startups at this stage typically have a valuation range of $10 million to $30 million. Securing Series A. Funding can be challenging, as it requires establishing a valuation that considers the company's value and prior investments. However, it provides investors with the opportunity to invest in a promising business, benefiting both the company and its future stockholders. Series A financing is a crucial stage for startups, offering the opportunity for growth and development. If you're considering this funding route, ensure your business is well prepared for the journey ahead.
Excellent. Well, I think we're going to get a great opportunity here, at least in the United States. We're going to get an opportunity to do that because as we're seeing just the way things are going, that the states are going to be once again, and I'm sorry, yay, in charge of their education and in charge of that component, which is a major component. And I believe that we will see a lot of major changes. Anaya and Melissa, and then Jackie.
This is so important for so many reasons, because one of the things that I really value is asking better and deeper questions. And so when we talk about education and when we talk about standardizing education, by whose standard are we constructing what it is that we want to be the education system? And it's a slippery slope. And I think there requires a lot of discernment, because as Belen was mentioning, post-colonialism, what was the standard of education that people were striving for? What was seen as the gold standard, rather than what does our society need? What do our children need? What does this culture need to hold its own value in an educational system that meets that value from a really grounded and stable place, not trying to emulate another system, because what may work in one place may not work where we are. So I just wanted to throw that in, because I will share with you, when I went into first grade in a standardized education system in the United States, I knew already how to read and write cursive, right? And I was so excited, because I was excited to be in kindergarten, had been great. And I was so excited to go into this first grade. And I got in there, and it wasn't long before I demonstrated that I could already read and write. And my teacher said to me, "You cannot do that here." And I was really like, well, I thought that was the purpose of being here. And I said, well, why not? She said, because I didn't teach you. And so that set me up in a very interesting way to perceive the process of education, and how standardized is great, but let standardized be the backbone so that you can open up into specific, individualized, expansive, inclusive. And that includes, of course, it took us a long time to get to be able to do this with individuals with disabilities, way too long. So I just wanted to throw that in there. Keep that kind of top of mind. Whose standard? And is it a standard that we want to emulate? And we better ask why and why not.
I like that. I like that. That is very, very good. Yeah, Jackie's writing down a lot of good nuggets that we're going to take in our report to really, thresh out and really bring on and continue to talk about. Yes, so, and I think once we do have the educational system back in the hands of the people who are actually using it, at the states and with the cities and, the towns and what have you, that are actually, first seeing it firsthand, the resulting, of what happens, with that particular education system and that curriculum. Melissa, we want you to chime in here, and then we're going to go over to Jackie.
Thank you, and thank you for sharing that, Anais. That actually happened to my niece in a Waldorf school system. And I know, Jan, you mentioned the Waldorf school system before. And so what it's coming down to is what I think it was Balin that said, is train the teachers, right? Because I don't believe it's the vision of any education system to shut down the child. It's just, let's train the teachers to, and I saw that reaction, and I know, I know there's a lot of controlling, and what I want to say here is that we need to open up to the fact that there's more than just the conscious mind, which is what we're teaching to right now, the 10%. And that's the very controlling aspect. Let's keep them all small. Let's let them not know how powerful they are. We're just going to teach to the conscious mind. And we're not exposing and teaching our children to the fact that we have an unconscious mind, the other 90%, that is connected to our emotional body, our imagination, that is connected to our higher self, where all the resources are for everything that we need in this lifetime to fulfill our mission. And none of that is being allowed into the public education systems around the world, because it is that idea of keeping the population small, and it's controlled by big industry so that we do what we're told to do. And if we can shift the education system enough to allow us to show up at school in kindergarten and start learning all of ourselves and have the tools to be able to manage our own state. I train this into adults, and yet we can teach kindergarten children. And imagine what the classroom would be like for the teachers if they knew how to teach the children how to manage their state, and the children could do it in a matter of seconds. It would shift the ability for kids to learn, and we wouldn't have kids being labeled and put on drugs in order to control the state, which we don't even know the lifelong impact of putting a 5-year-old on a drug to control the state. Let's teach them how to do it. And it comes back, as you said, Carol, to mindset. And I did a really positive story that I want to share, is that my business partner teaches this to her young children, and her daughter came home with a report card the other day from school, and the first thing on the report card said is she knows how to discern between a growth mindset and a closed mindset. This is an 8-year-old child at a school in Vancouver. So it's starting to happen, which is amazing. Absolutely amazing. And as somebody said earlier, every child is born into this world with the ability to learn.
That's right. Then we have to, and we're the ones that have to give them the capability to learn even more and to discern even more. So I'm going to, I always give Jackie the hard part of the question. So can we expect to see an onslaught of metaphysical schools in the United States, Canada, and around the world?
Hope so. Definitely hope so. I think that is the answer. I really do. I think we need to change our mentality in several different ways. I think the system, generally speaking, looking from a United States view, I guess, is broken. I think it's really broken. And I think we've gotten away from teach thyself as well. I think, and I love the two of you are in the Waldorf system. I love the concept of letting the child learn by doing, instead of preaching to them and at them, is to let them experience and to per se fail in their minds, but there's no such thing as failing as long as they learn from it. The concept of teaching the teachers, of course, how to administer this. It's the Montessori, it's the Waldorf, it's the bringing in all the different modalities that never were there before, that we never had access because we didn't have an open globe. Now we do, and it's happening in so many ways. I mean, the Footsteps to Brilliance app that I work with does it in so many ways, teaches them how to be into literacy, teaches them life skills, teaches them all types of things. But again, we don't all have that instrument to work with. So I think it is a matter of training the teachers, because it's a whole different world. And yet they do need to have it so that the students are able to explore and to show and teach us by what they're learning, because they do have those skills. And I always love this saying, the children are not to be there for molding, they are flowers unfolding. And that's exactly what we need to do, is to allow them to unfold and bring out their beauty And yet it's not, this is the way it is. 1 + 1 is 2. Well, maybe it's a little different. Allow them to grow. And there are so many different ways or groups that are doing that. I keep finding them all the time. South Africa with Megan. I mean, Carol and I could go on forever on all the groups that we keep finding, and that education has to include everything. That means planetary wellness, besides personal wellness. That means the wellness of your community. There are so many things that we know now and have access to that we never really did before. It's important that we as women that are more open-minded, and I could go into all the differences between male and female, and it makes a big difference here. Open-minded, curious. It's not, this is the way it is, and let's get to point B. No, we listen, and it's important for us to do that, and that is our distinguishing difference. The stupid thing is to listen. And so, Yvonne, I could go on forever. You know that.
That's okay.
To literacy.
Jackie can get.
You get me on my soapbox, and
get on that soapbox.
As everyone knows, yeah. But it's us teaching. We have to teach the teachers how to do that, and we all have the skills to do that.
Welcome to our guide on Series B financing. Series B financing is tailored for established startups with a significant user base and revenue, aiming to secure additional funding for market expansion, operations, and customer growth. This funding round usually secures between $6 million and $75 million, with a valuation range of $25 million to $65 million.
Venture capitalists and established private equity firms are key players in Series B funding, seeking deeper involvement in the company's strategy.
The funding should be utilized to consolidate operations and drive expansion. And that's a wrap on Series B financing. Stay tuned for more insightful content.
We've cracked open another segment here that we will visit again with this group. And we will go into that more and more, because yes, I would like to see the onset of those metaphysical schools, around the world, and to begin to teach, from the ancient ways, because the ancient ways is that's how we are able to actually, the earth continues. The earth has to continue. It's not going to stop. It's not going to disintegrate. I don't care how many bombs or whatever that they make. It's always going to, come back and regenerate itself again. And we have to be apprised of the fact that we have to educate ourselves from one era to another era. And one of the things I will say that I will be sending out to everyone, and that is, we have to make certain that there is a protection of our books and of our writing and of our historical archiving of information. We have to make certain that we do not allow, these things to be taken, away from us. They may take a book off the shelf, or they may, discontinue it printing. Get a copy of that in print. Create libraries of your own. Teach your children to create libraries. Have community libraries and storage repositories. And that's why you can see different documentaries where, I'll just go right straight to it. When they found the Dead Sea Scrolls, where were they? They were hidden away, and they were hidden away because at that time and during that era, they were burning. They burnt down Timbuktu, the library. They burnt down the library. They destroyed the library in Memphis. That was in Egypt. The library in Alexandria. They destroyed those libraries. And so now we wonder, well, why is it that when we go back and we look and we see all these artifacts and all these things, they had flying ships and mechanical devices that we can't even recreate today? Well, perhaps had they not burnt down those repositories of information, we'd have access to that. We'd know how to build it, and we'd be fine. So we got to make sure that, since we do look back at the past, that was a mistake. It shouldn't have been done. So we're going to have to reside and take responsibility that it's not being done in the future, so that the generation is coming behind us. And I wanted to say this to all of you who were those kids. I could just imagine as I look at your faces, you were those kids, those girls, those boys in that 3rd and 4th grade that gave your teacher, she was like, oh, that what for? And she set you in that corner for something you said or did. They are so proud of you right now. Give yourselves a hand clap. They are so proud of you because of what you are doing and what you are bringing. This is what they were trying to tell you then, okay, that you would be and that you could be. And that is why it is our responsibility to make sure we do the same thing going forward, so that there's that group that is sitting together like we are here 50, 100 years from now. And we're smiling, looking down. We're in the spirit energy, and we're smiling and looking down on them and saying, oh, I got it. That one that I just knew. There was no God, man, and country that got it. And I know my teacher is saying that because I talked to her and I talked to the whole class. I talk too much. But I'm going to take us now in a totally different direction. And this particular area, it doesn't make sense to me, and it never has, that this is an issue. And it's like unequal political representation. And society, we can't achieve gender equality or parity until we do have that equal political representation. And there have just been many surveys that are out there that say women still feel consistently excluded from politics. Now, the reason why that bothers me is this. When I look across the states, across Canada, Europe, Africa, Australia, all I see constantly, and I do a lot with the World Economic Forum, and when you go to those things, whether you go online or whether you go in person, you see the same thing. There is overwhelming number, and even the World Trade Organization, there's an overwhelming number, and at the United Nations, of women who are in power. The chancellors, I'm talking about people who are prime ministers. We know those names, the Margaret Thatchers, the Indira Gandhis, the Queen Elizabeth. They ruled for eras. And then we, all throughout, the chancellors of Germany, all the different women who are in charge, the World Trade Organization is one by woman. And they just unanimously, literally, I saw the vote there. They didn't even want to vote. They just said, she's doing a good job, let her keep going. And the older man said, no, we got to take a vote, I mean, and she was unanimous, but it was like, he was like, what, why are we wasting time doing that? She's doing fine. And, she's voted back in. And she is doing a wonderful job in the World Trade Organization. And so I'm looking just the World Health Organization. I'm looking across all these, and I'm saying, how could we possibly be saying that we feel we're underrepresented? And I think, and I'm going to go to Terry first, because Terry made a very good point. And that was this, that yes, we're there and we're in charge, but we somehow, we don't think that we have a right to bring other women and to pay those women, or to pay attention to those women, or to hear those women's voices or those women's issues, whether it be food insecurity, or whether it be, lack of pay or what have you. And we're not listening to them, and they're our constituents who are out there in our communities, that we are their representatives. So I have a very hard time with this, with the fact that you have so many women who are in high places and who are representing, but yet they're not amenable to the plight or the disenfranchisement or the less than parity of women? Terry, I'll turn it over to you.
Yeah, I think what I've learned is you have to have power over yourself before you understand what to do with the power that you have over others. And when you're in a leadership role, whether it's business or politics, you have power over others. And so if I don't value myself and don't value my worth, then how am I going to value the worth of other people? And so the same stories that I have about my own worth are now played out in the constituents and the people that I serve. So I think it comes back to understanding your own value. And when you understand your own value and you can appreciate your own value, it's much easier to understand the value of others.
Okay. All right. Dr. Jan?
It's actually a vibrational playground, all of it. When we speak, if 10%, our words don't matter, it's the intention behind it. And if all of our feeling world is 80 to 90%, and we've been programmed to think I don't deserve it, I'm not thin enough, in this Western capitalistic society, this is what they honor, and women multitask, they say yes to doing too many things. They bring all of this energy of too much and think that they're saying words to constituents to impress. It's an incoherency of the vocal profile. And I've proven it over 20 years working with women's voices that you attract and resonate out. I'm not worth it. I really don't have the power. And that 90% of your feeling emotional world is met with distrust. Why would I partner with this woman? Why would I give her this? So in America, we have a more youthful mentality. European systems have brought women up. The matriarchal systems and the feminine-led political systems have a much higher social well-being. People are happier, they're healthier. But in America, it's still that good old boy. There's still such it's just not healthy. So how do women get down to that unconscious part that is louder than the words? And that's education. That is seeing another woman in her complete, full, holistic, authentic power, speaking coherently. That lands in other people's heart. And Aeneas, you said it so perfectly. When men trust you, they will share their intimate secrets, their questions. And I've learned to be advisor to kings. But this last couple of years, Spirit's saying, wait a minute, the chess game is asking for you women to be queens, to stand just as tall, not to stand there, but to learn to stand together. And so the deep work that I've had to do in my voice was, I did my dissertation on it, was learning to release all the old patterning. And it takes time and it takes mentoring, but it's a vibrational healing, deep construct that keeps coming out in your vocal profile. And I'm so glad I got a chance to say this, because this is what I've devoted my life to, is helping women change their vocal pattern from this that attracts this to this to this.
Okay, excellent, thank you. And I'm glad you did have a chance to share, to get that out and to share a part of your life's work with us. I appreciate you for bringing that to the table. We're going to take it to another issue here, a deep issue that many of us turn our heads to.
Telos means the highest purpose. It was a term coined by Aristotle. It's about individuals in society coming together to reach their fullest potential. Cities that have been built to date from scratch are more like real estate projects. They don't start with people at the center, because if you started with people at the center, you immediately would think, okay, what's the mission and what are the values? The mission of Telosa is to create a more equitable and sustainable future. That's our North Star, and that'll never change. What we're trying to do is combine sort of the best of different cities in the world and bring it together. So if you think about Tolosa being as vibrant and diverse as a New York City, combined with efficiency, safety, and cleanliness of a city like Tokyo, combined with the social services, the sustainability, and the governance model of a city like Stockholm, we are going to be the most open, the most fair, and the most inclusive city in the world. If you really want to go after a moonshot, which I would consider the city to be, you have to start with a big, bold vision. You need to raise the required capital. You need to surround yourself with the very best people in the world. And if you get those three things right, you can achieve incredible, magical things. BRK, who's the founder of BIG, expressed an incredible passion for this project.
Tolosa, in my mind, sort of embodies the kind of social and environmental care of a kind of Scandinavian culture and the kind of freedom and opportunity of a more American culture.
You get a great firm with someone who basically is super passionate and wants to see this project come to fruition as much as we do. We're taking a stab at what we call equitism here. What if you can pay the same taxes that you pay today, but get the best social services of any country in the world? That's equitism. Testing this new model for society, and at the same time, you're also testing building a city from a clean slate. What would you do? How do you infuse technology in it? How do you build it more sustainable? How do you build a public transportation system that's more efficient? How do you build underground movement of waste and goods to keep the city more clean, more walkable? How do you test autonomous vehicles to keep it safer? If I can imagine the ideal state 30 years from now, I would want people to have a sense of pride in the city because the city lives by a set of values that resonate with them. That the city's the most open, the most fair, the most inclusive city in the world, and that's what people feel when they're in the city.
It happens every day across every country and everywhere. And we turn a blind eye to human trafficking. We see it and we don't see it. What can we do? What can your organization do about it? Lisa?
I think this is a broader issue because if you talk about human trafficking, a lot of it has to do with economics. Why do we have, for example, mafia families? Because they roll a whole bunch of money through smuggling, through drugs, through prostitution, weaponry, whatever. Human trafficking is not much different if you think about it. And especially women exploited for sex. I personally have a different perspective. You might not have heard that before, but I think the whole norms of societies in general, actually, on a cultural scale on each country, they have to be redefined. And in my opinion, the reason why we even have this issue in the first place is because human sexuality has been repressed from the youngest age. Sexuality is present even in early childhood, but because it's been repressed and replaced by aggressiveness or replaced with anything else but good communication between boys and girls, women and men, because you see gender segregation is first of all geographical. How many cultures would not allow boys and girls to play together, women and men to study together, to live together, work together? They had their own designated spaces. So human trafficking also stems from this. Is this a mentality of ownership that has been cultivated over millennia, that men can do anything to anybody? And it's easier to own, to go for grabs, as opposed to just develop a healthy relationship and good communication. A lot of this has to do with repressed sexuality. We don't have to go all into Sigmund Freud here. There's no need for that. But think about it. All this time, from the youngest age, men were taught to fight. All that energy had been redirected. Those who are into spiritual balancing of women and men energy, that energy has been redirected. By the time man reaches maturity, if he's been raised in that toxic social model, he won't know how to talk to a woman. It's easier to just assault and rape, human trafficking on a larger scale has this root cause in here. Plus, there's also the economic implications. Let's find out if we can build other economies to replace the income of these people who think that they can only do it like, back in the slavery days. We know how much of a plague that's been on the human history. And it doesn't have to be like, African slavery. You think about ancient Roman Greece. There was a handful of white dudes owning a whole bunch of other white people, Asia was the same way, same ethnicity, same color, people owning people. We have to address this from a deepest level of society, just back to essence, women and men. Let's live in harmony so we can, let's acknowledge the issue so we can welcome the future with a clean slate. There's a lot of work to do on this.
A lot of work to be done on that. Very well said. Very well said. And I'm going to throw out a topic that is that seems to be by design, more so in the from my perspective, it seems like it is designed into societies across the globe, and that is mental health and mental health issues. And I haven't been able to find not one report from any country that says to me that men have poor mental health more so than women do in that country. I'm like, that's interesting. When you think about it, the brain is in everybody's body, right? And so what would affect one would affect another, or what have you. So what is it that the studies are being reported, that the numbers or information, we've seen that many times over, will be reported incorrectly or overwhelmingly by one way or another? Or is that by design, by the very nature of what you are doing to women as opposed to what you are doing to men, and therefore it creates this sickness or this illness or this perception of, because I think a lot of in the mental health is a perception of, because what happens is and I'm going to call on Pamelia and Carol to address these issues. Pamelia, am I wrong to think that much of mental health can be attributed to a perception, or is it by design, by the way in which you treat people or characterize people, that forces them into a mental health state?
Well, I would also say that it's emotional health. So oftentimes we're attributing a mental health issue, for want of a better word, but it's emotional health. So if our emotions, if we're addressing those emotions, and we're supporting the positive emotions that we want to have, and not not keeping the emotions that down, we're not reducing the emotions, or we're identifying and addressing the emotions that we're having. And I think what a lot of what has happened is that men, as we know, have been conditioned to not have those emotions, or if they're having them, to not identify, because that's identifying with a weakness, not a strength. Women have been historically allowed to have more emotions around being unhappy or distraught, or whatever we term weaker, what we have been terming weaker. So I think we need to look at this mental health issue both from a mental issue and also from an emotional issue, because I believe they go hand in hand. And looking at as well, and Melissa knows this because she does this work as well, looking at the correlation between gut health and brain health. So for many, many years over the history, we have just thought that if our stomachs were upset, that was one thing. If we were not thinking, or we were losing our memory, that was something else. But I've been wondering myself, because I'm very curious, what the correlation is between gut health and brain health. And I have attributed it with some research that I've done to the fact that we, especially in North America, have been eating really awful food for the last 50 years. And so why now do we have, and this is my word, tsunami of mental health issues and dementia and Alzheimer's? Well, I truly believe it's because of the fact that we've been eating horrible processed food for such a long time. So that correlation is going to happen. And there's degrees of mental health issues and types of mental health. And so that's where we really have to be more educated around what is it that's going on. We have been given to pharmaceuticals for children at a very young age, just because they happen to exhibit a certain kind of personality that perhaps wasn't fitting into the classroom or wasn't fitting into a family issue. So, I mean, I have a daughter who has been diagnosed with ADHD, and I know that, it was like putting her in something that she, as her mother, really didn't believe that's where she should have been. She should have been the segment of where she should have been.
Got it.
However, we do that way too often.
Yes. Carol.
Yeah.
Carol, and then I want Melissa to kind of pick up on what Dr. Parmelia was talking about, and that is that gut health correlation between mental health. But Carol, you deal with children, you deal with youth, I should say. So can you chime in on this?
And so for what I've been seeing is that it's so much easier to just box you into a certain place and give you a medication and say that is who you are, that is what you are. And it follows you through life. And you believe it because it came from professionals. So what I am all about is having them really and truly get, starting from the same playing field, take that label away from them and allow them to be who they are meant to be, not inside of some kind of box that they have put them in. Just like Parmelia said, she has a daughter that they diagnosed her as ADHD. That is a way for us to just be managed. And I am so about having creativity and having them really and truly experience their own greatness. Human beings, we are resilient. We have been given so much and so many talents. And yet when you get put into a box, that is what you live. That is where you live. And I want to see those boxes go away. I want to have a different conversation around mental health, because I do believe many have just been placed so that they could be managed. And we need to free them.
Melissa, gut health, brain health. What's the correlation? Stomach feels good, brain feels good.
There is massive correlation, because we actually have neurons not just inside our brain, through our entire nervous system, and more in the rest of our nervous system than even just in our brain. And 90% of serotonin is made in the gut. That's our feel-good transmitter. And dopamine is also made in the gut. People think it's all made up in the brain, and it isn't. And so if our gut is not healthy, it can't produce the right amount of serotonin for you to actually feel good. And you go to the doctor and you say, I feel sad, et cetera, and they don't have time to go through, your whole health history and start talking about your gut and your mindfulness practices and how stress is damaging your gut, or not getting enough sleep is damaging your gut. Not to mention, as Parmelia said, the food we've been eating. The standard American diet gives us 17 of the needed nutrients that our body needs to thrive in a given day. And a healthy diet will give us at least 90. So our body is in a place of deprivation every single day. And it can't thrive, it can't function at its best when it's constantly deprived of what it needs. And that's unfortunately the food industry that has been doing that to us in their option of making profit. We have a food industry that doesn't care about our health. We have a health industry that doesn't care about our food because our doctors aren't trained in nutrition. So they don't even know to talk to people about that when they go into the doctor and say, I'm feeling sad. They're trained in writing prescriptions and here's the drug that you need to take. And so
I'm gonna pivot over as we go in. We're coming up on our 12 o'clock hour, but that was very good. I love what you did. Anaya.
I want to take this one level deeper because everything that everyone has said is absolutely spot on. But we are living in a system of design perception. And that includes all of the things that we recognize as poor health, over medication, being identified, put into a box. This is intentional. And one of the things that I love to take people into as the quantum leap is that we're composed of trillions of cells. And our cells are conscious and aware. And what we have lacked in education is how to develop the relationship, an intentional relationship with every aspect of who we are, because this is the way out. This is a quantum leap. This is the ticket to freedom. Your body is your best friend, but not if you don't have a conscious relationship.
Okay. Excellent interchange there. And I'm going to now, what I want to do is let's kind of switch this. And Terry, one of the things I know that you get into when you're going out and you're helping companies to be better, we're going into the AI, the cybersecurity, into these different areas or what have you. What types of things, that can help, women entrepreneurs or in business or even in corporations to be able to deal with and to integrate AI into our systems and, just to kind of be aware of how much that could really help us? Because I think it was Dr. Jan said that we have the syndrome of I can do it all myself, the superwoman. I took my cape off a long time ago. But Terry?
Yeah, back to that statistic I said at the beginning of in the United States, 1.9% of all women-owned businesses make it above $1 million. The reason for that is because we have Atlas complex and we think we have to do it all ourselves. And you can't build a business. You don't grow a business. What you do is you grow people who build and grow the business, and you've got to learn how to delegate, and you've got to learn how not to do things all of it yourself. So that stress that puts on your body now, I believe, is exacerbated with AI, because even if it's a great tool for us, it's now something we have to learn how to use. And so what are most women business owners doing right now? They're trying to figure out how to learn how to use AI, when what they should be doing is find people who know how to use AI and let them show you how to actually use it in your business to be more efficient and more effective.
Okay. All right. I like that. Short, sweet, to the point. So in other words, go find somebody who knows what they're doing, let them show you how to do it, or like myself, get the DIY. Let them done for you. What's the other acronym for that? Let them do it for you. We've got here about another good, we're at a good point. We're right at 20 minutes, 19 minutes, what have you. So, we just want to basically have topics, have discussions. So I really want to kind of hear from you. What are some of the things that are plaguing your industries, what's that thing, that one thing, I just got to get off my chest. I want to say, so let's take these last few minutes before we wrap up, and let's just kind of, let's see, where are we going with all of this? Dr. Jan, why don't you start us off? Becoming Queen Mentoring.
I think it's becoming obvious that the word we're talking about, the cupola that's coming and growing, is consciousness, energy management, and learning to receive higher information. I think that we're all connecting on this. It's just mind-blowing to me that on this panel, we're all saying the same things, but from our own puzzle piece. And what we're learning is we are a community. We're a global community of such great intelligences, but we need to bring it down to live in harmony in our own locality. So think local, but receive the information. Why reinvent the wheel? Get global information, and that's what my partner and I are doing here in Port Townsend, Washington, is finding new blueprints for community, reliance. If the weather, if the supply systems go down, how can you live through the coming social changes until things are brighter everywhere with a more global connection and benevolent intentionality across the board?
Okay. Lisa?
I would say right now the big challenge is for people to acknowledge that diversity is not going to go anywhere. We are all diverse, and as long as the human species exists, diversity and diversity-related issues will be there. So if we ignore it, the same issues are not going to go away. Personally, I think it will come back despite the current political climate. This would be the main challenge, to understand that really people face the same challenges as before. Is now a matter of intentionally choosing to ignore them. We need to go back to acknowledging.
Okay. Jackie?
I have so much. Okay. Try and condense this as Yvonne's going. Come on, keep it clean. Okay. Oh my gosh. There is so much on this screen, which it's half and half if you really stop and think about it. We are half wellness and health, and another half are working on helping businesses. So if I look at this screen, it's really beautiful. And what was just said, and is so real, there will always be diversity. There will always be differences, and economizing on that. And as Carol and I say, collaboration is our middle name. And really, that's exactly what we really need to do. All of you have the answers. You really do. And society has the answers if they just pay attention to their subconscious. Amelia. If you just pay attention to your subconscious and be able to bring out that energy, Anise, you know that. It's that energy of bringing out exactly what you're capable of doing with people and learning from the other societies to apply to your local situation. It's to become open, and I love my statement from Gary Spence, is to be open to wonder rather than closed by belief. This could not be more appropriate today because you all know the answers of being completely open, whether you're in the Philippines, whether you're in Africa, in so many places that we are here now. These cultures, these indigenous cultures, a lot of them know the answers, darn it. Pay attention. We go to South America and the Amazon, and let's face it, they've been fighting this thing for years. Pay attention to each other with respect and listening to be able to interpret. All of you, especially those in the wellness, you can play together. It's a matter of not competing, but completing and bringing together the women. Okay, and the other one last comment, because I know Yvonne's kind of champing at the bit. The last comment is that men and women are different. And I think we really need to believe that. I have a book that will come out from my mentor, Patricia Munson, and it is so real. It's called Male is a Second Language. We think differently. We look at things differently. Yes, Bylon, we have a blend of male and female in us, and each of us has it in a different percentage. And if we play on that to be able to use it to our best, then we will be able to do better. Men go right to the point. Women listen and want to hear the ins and the outs, and maybe they'll change their mind by the end of the situation. The point is, we are different. Men are motivated by different ways. They don't want to go into all the detail. They just want to get it done, period. And the other part that I think is extremely important in this, in what she has said in her book, and I keep listening to it in my brain, we need to tell them what we need. They do not understand. When we make that perfectly clear, they want to please us. When they make that perfectly clear, savor the waiting, and don't weenie whack them. Make them right more than wrong, and you would be surprised what we can accomplish in this world if we realize our differences, realize we've got the thought pattern going around 25 miles faster than theirs, and pay attention and collaborate together. I could go on and on, Yvonne. You want me to go on and on?
Okay. No, you're good.
That's
You're
fine.
good. You're good. You're good. Melissa, what's that burning? What is that burning desire that I just got to get this off my chest?
I just want to say that we cannot truly thrive as individuals until we are truly thriving as humanity. Which means we all have to come together and lift each other up. And it does start with education. It is not free in over 50 countries around the world. There's 66 million girls out of school globally. And when we can educate the first world, because when I talk to people about this, many have no idea. If we can educate the first world as to how we in the first world can come together to help lift everybody up, that's how we change the world. And in that process, shift the education system and what is being taught and how it's being delivered, as well as times change, all of that will come. There's a book I read last year, 2 years ago now, called Lift Half the Sky. Half the Sky. And it's titled that because it means that we should all be holding up half the sky. Men have half the sky, women have half the sky. Except that right now, women aren't holding up half the sky because so many women are struggling in various countries around the world because of trafficking, etc., 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 lack of education. And in every story in this book, which was admittedly hard to read, they rose up because they had an education. They received some level of education that allowed them to rise above and say, this isn't right. I don't need to be treated like this. I can leave. I have a choice. I have access to resources, and I can create a different life for myself. And that's why we have to start with education for all, to empower the girls, empower the women. And we can only do it together.
Okay. Excellent.
It takes all of us.
All of us together. Anaya, that burning is just jumping to get out.
Well, what burns in me is the unity that we are all accepting that we shouldn't have or that we don't deserve. And so when I look at that symbol of the UN, it's a very beautiful symbol. It's coded in a special way that actually speaks to DNA. You have two branches. You can just imagine them being male and female energy that are holding up the world as well as the sky. And you have 8 sections, and that's the wheel of time from birth to death. And in that embrace, we have all of our continents. So that's an incredibly powerful symbol. My burning, burning, burning bush, ha ha ha, is that we are, every one of us, 360 degrees kaleidoscope of consciousness. And when you turn your consciousness, and you are the hand that is turning, you are the beautiful colored chits inside, you are the lens, and you are the eye that is looking. That's when how you move energy becomes a skill set that includes every natural element in our bodies and on this planet. We are on a learning curve to learn how to communicate in the most profound, loving, and deepest way possible. And we're getting there, and we're getting there faster and faster, and I love it. My burning bush is, let's do it together. Let's do it in quantum leaps, in balance.
Byline, Global Dream Makers.
Have a vision. What is your dream for the world you want to experience? For the world you want your grandchildren and great-grandchildren to experience? And today, in this life, as individuals, have the courage to have your own vision for yourself and to show up with authenticity. Absolute authenticity. We need to know the real you. We need to experience the real you. Forget about what you think everybody else is going to think about you or what they're expecting of you. Just be you. Be you. That is a gift to all of us. And I wanted to, this is what's resounding in my mind. There's a poem by Shel Silverstein. Listen to the mustn'ts, child. Listen to the don'ts. Listen to the shouldn'ts, the impossibles, the won'ts. Listen to the never haves. Then listen close to me. Anything can happen, child. Anything can be. So go out there and create that anything. This is your piece of the puzzle to the global dream that we are all experiencing. We're waiting for you to show up.
Okay, all righty. Okay, Carol, let's hear from the Youth Global founder. Okay, she still has the she has enough nerves of steel to deal with the youth.
Okay, so my burning thing that I want to share is I'm all about raising the vibration of love on the planet. It is the thing that will heal every issue we're talking about, is raising the vibration of love on the planet. And I want to just share something with you. Someday, after we have mastered the winds, the waves, the tides, and gravity, we will harness the energies of love. And then for the second time, man will have discovered fire. We as human beings need to raise the love, raise that vibration. It's the highest vibration on the planet is love, and it will master everything else.
And love conquers all. Sunny?
I have been blessed to be with you all, and I will share it to all I touch. And I encourage you to do the same, because there is way, way more to do, and we have much to share.
Wonderful. Parmelia?
To remember that we really do have that powerful consciousness, that we are amazing humans. We're actually having We're spirits having a human existence. And one of the things that I learned very many years ago from my energy teacher was, as I'm raising my level of consciousness individually, I am assisting with raising the level of consciousness in the world. So we are all so powerful. We really need to be focused on raising our own individual level of confidence and consciousness, because that's what we have, our gift that we're giving to the rest of the world.
That is excellent. And she's absolutely right. I know my mother always said when she got up, the house got up. That's it. When she went out, the house went out. And so, yes, she's absolutely right in that. What I want to do is to basically give a shout out to each of you. I thank you. I welcome you into my heart of hearts, into my community here, and into the community of women, and into the Women Leading Change Now community. You are now an official part of the United Nations Commission on the Status of Women. You have put your voice now to be recorded into that status, giving those around the world an opportunity to see and to hear where we are and where we want to go and where we can go. And when we begin to realize that, who we are and just what we are and what we stand for, it makes it easier to go, because what we know is this. It's like the old African proverb said, if you want to go quickly, you go alone. But if you want to go further, you go together. The microwave time is over. We know the microwave works and we know exactly how it works. Now we have to get on with the business of the planet. Mother Earth is calling out to us in so many ways. This is far bigger than any one of us. It is as big as all of us collectively. So yes, we have to gather our resources, gather ourselves, continue these conversations. Do not let the conversation stop here. Do not let it stop today. Ray, as Parmelia said, when you raise the conscious level of one, you raise the conscious level of all. And we must do this together if we want the survival of this planet to be whole and to be intact for generations to come. So let's look to the next 100 years. That's where we are going. And we want to be having a very different conversation next year and the year after and the year after. And we want to be talking about the successes. What was the successes? So I want you to start thinking about that now. I will invite everyone back to the round table. It'll be our 4th annual roundtable. It'll be the Commission on the Status of Women 70. It'll be the 70th convening. So I invite everyone to come back to the table and to tell me, what have you done? What has been done? And even if that progress is only 1.111 or 0.111, we want to know, because that means that you are putting one foot in front of the other and you're moving forward. So let's have a big smile, and we're going to, if you would, unmute your phone so we don't see the microphones in the final picture. Okay, back straight, eyes forward, smiles. Everyone, we can do that one more time. Thank you. Okay. And
Thank
we're
you.
out.
Thank you.
you.
Thanks, everybody.
It's
This
wonderful.
was
Thank
Wow.
great.
It was wonderful. Thank you.
So amazing. So
you.
amazing.
Beautiful.
Thank you, Yvonne. Thank you
Thank
so
you, Yvonne.
much. Oh my
Thank
goodness. You have done such an amazing job. Thank you.
Oh, thank
you to the one male among us. How
Yes,
how
thank
did
you.
We're better
Balance.
together.
Yeah.
Sandy, did you do that? Okay, I can see you going like this. Let's see. No. Come on, we can do this.
Oh, we're trying to move together, huh?
Yeah, yeah.
Okay.
Can we all move this way and I'll move that way?
Can I ask Jan? Jan, can you like help us close out with a toning or something?
Let's take a deep breath through our nose and out through our mouth and hold our hands up together to feel our own love and vibration and care for this planet. And let's send this out to every sister and every brother, every mother, every child with the tone of love. Beautiful stars. We're going through the grid, surrounding and wrapping up a new bow that we've created today vibrationally. And thank you, Yvonne, for your outstanding facilitation. You are so smart. And by the way, I'm a voice expert. And the minute you sounded, I said, ka-chink. You're a leader. You're a true leader.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
Cheers. Bye, everybody.
Bye, everyone.
Bye, Jackie.
Bye,
Excited to
everyone.
stay
Thank
on.
you very much.
Beautiful.
Beautiful, beautiful. Bye, Carol. Bye, Lisa.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you, Karen.
Bye. Thank you, Jackie.
Financing your next $1 billion? Contact us to be a guest. Join us for the next show.